Hello and welcome to the first YA Book Club live chat. I'm so excited to do this. I've wanted to start a YA Book Club for years and years and not really known how to go about it, but I think that YouTube is the perfect place for it. And it's been amazing that in the Goodreads group, we've had 350 or so members. So for the first month, that's so amazing. So thank you, everyone. I'm also joined by three lovely friends. When I decided I was going to read a very spooky, disturbing horror book, these three names just kind of sprung to mind. I hope that's a compliment, all of you. It was meant as one. And I've been watching all of your channels for ages, so it'll be really exciting to get your thoughts on some horror in real time, because obviously we're used to watching each other, but not necessarily doing this live. So very exciting. I will be dipping into the comments as well. Depending on how many people are here, I will try and get through all the comments, or if there's lots and lots of them, then I will just kind of dip in and out. I will be in the chat confusingly, but it is not me. My husband is in the chat as me because he's going to choose three commenters to win book plates from Alex Bell. She kindly has given 3 signed book plates. So 3 people will be able to win. And I'll also be announcing 3 people who've been posting pictures of Frozen Child on social media will be able to get a signed book plate from Alex as well. And luckily for the next book, I've managed to get in touch with the author of that. So Sophie Isabel, the author of The Witchery, is also going to send us some book plates. So we are very lucky that all these authors have been very supportive of the book club. So I'm just going to pop into the comments and do a few hellos, and then I'll let you introduce yourselves. Yes, we're looking forward to it as well. Hi, Lizzie.
Hey, Lizzie.
Hi, yes, definitely. Whoops, my comments are refreshing all over the place. So I've done the first couple of comments. I'll let them build up and do their thing. So let's just start by the 3 of you introducing yourselves. Hopefully you can see on the screen that I'm joined by Katrina, Kelsey, and Elizabeth, all fantastic book and horror tubers. So do you want to start, Katrina, by telling us a little bit about you and your channel?
Sure. My channel's name is Katrina Brown, and I read mostly horror books. I read thrillers sometimes. Right now, I'm in the middle of reading Trash for Ollie's readathon, Grab August 1.5, and I'm reading Gothic romance, old 70s Gothic romance, so that is new to me. And for this year, I'm definitely diving right in more into paperbacks from hell, reading vintage
Awesome.
horror, and I do a lot themed vlogs and then typical YouTube stuff, booktube
Cool.
videos.
Excellent. We know what you mean. Elizabeth, do you want to go next and tell us a little bit about your channel?
Sure. My name is Elizabeth Sagewood. So my YouTube channel is under the same name. And I think it's just over 2 years now that I've been doing BookTube.
Cool.
And it's fantastic. We have such a great community here. So I read mostly all types of horror, but everybody, I think, knows that my heart lives with middle grade and YA specifically, and a lot of vintage. So I love to collect vintage paperbacks. Fear Street, Christopher Pike, Point Horror, all the things. It's very nostalgic for me from the 90s, growing up in the 90s. So that's kind of overall what I love. And then this month specifically, so like Katrina said, I'm actually reading some romance this month as well, which is very strange for me. But there is a Gothic Hearts reading challenge going on this month. And so I've been loving picking up some Gothic books, and, it gives me a chance to kind of get into some classics that I've been wanting to read that I haven't had a chance to pick up.
Oh, that's awesome. I've just finished reading Rebecca and realized that I haven't read any Gothic classics for ages. It was so good. I couldn't believe how the twist completely hit me in the stomach every time.
I've got it on Audible. I think I'm going to try to get to it next week. I'm really excited.
It's so good. I read that in high school and I actually liked it. So.
Yeah, the high school books are a bit of a hit and a miss, aren't they? So it's great if they got you to read something really good. And how about you then, Kelsey? Apart from loving Rebecca, what else could we learn about you?
I am Kelsey from Slime and Slashers. That's my channel. The reason it's called that is because I do sometimes talk about nostalgia. That's where the slime comes in, 90s Nickelodeon slime. I'm wearing my 90s kid earrings right now. It says 90s kid. That's me. So I do love nostalgia, but the slashers kind of hints at, well, hey, I love horror too. Not just horror movies, which slashers usually are associated with movies, but big into books. I'm basically a booktube, horror tube channel. I don't really stray away from book talk too much, but sometimes. But, you know, I've got a book club. It's called the Midnight Book Society, which is named after Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's a little ode to that. So there is nostalgia again popping up. We read all kinds of stuff, but basically on my channel, I love to talk about and to read horror of all kinds. I do read new horror sometimes, but I'm very big into vintage horror. I've been reading Paperbacks from Hell for about two and a half years now, and it's kind of where my heart is. I really love old school vintage books. I do also love vintage YA and vintage middle grade, just like Elizabeth does. You know, Christopher Pike, Fear Street, Goosebumps, all that goodness. Point horror. Yes, yes. All kinds of great stuff. I also, like Katrina, am reading garbage right now for Ollie's event, Garbaugust 1.5, The Wasted Weekend. I am reading The Cats right now, which is a old school animal attack book. It's okay so far. It's not the best, but hey, it's fun. And then I'm going to be reading some Ruby Jean Jensen maybe tomorrow, which is definitely like a big old school horror name. And I've read a couple of books by her, but this one I'm going to read is called Wait and See, and I've heard it's good. So I'm excited.
That is exciting. I love it when you've got a book. I've got one at the moment called Burn the Negative, which is like next on my list, by Josh Winning. It is about a girl who starred in a 90s cult, like, cursed movie, and she's now a reporter covering the remake of it, which also seems to be cursed. And I'm like, could there be a more perfect blurb than that? And it's got mixed media in it, so it's got little bits of social media, I think, and like extracts from books. It looks beautiful. So it's just been staring at me. I'm reading lots of other things. I'm like, oh, when I can get to that book, I'll be so excited.
I think my friend Sarah just read that and loved it, so I want to read it. Yeah, I've heard about it.
Yeah, it doesn't come out till July. Normally I delay books a little bit that come out later in the year, but I just can't wait for that one.
I know. That one sounds good.
Yes, awesome. So I'm just going to jump through the comments a little bit because I can see them like shooting up in my peripheral vision. Hello, happy Saturday. Jennifer. Yes, I'm so glad to see all the love. I don't want to be biased, but I did pick this one. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if we could read what Charlotte says as a future pick. I just don't want to put off all the horror fans. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Erin.
Hi. Yes, I'm very glad. Hi, Reika. So many friendly faces here.
Yay!
Hello.
Yay! Hey.
Hi, Andreas. Hello. Hi. Hi, Amy.
Amy!
I just feel so weird saying hi, Amy, from Amy. It's even worse when you write a letter and you write it to Amy from yourself. Hi. Thank you for coming, Shelley. I wasn't sure if Shelley can make it, so that's nice to see your name popping
Sherry.
up. Hi, Sherry. Oh, there's so many people. My comments don't know what to do with themselves. It's really
they're blowing up in a good way.
Yeah,
you know?
Yes. Yes, I mean, the authors have been so supportive. I think from an author perspective, I would be happy if a bunch of people were reading my book, so I probably would be on the side of sending stuff too. But yes, it's very nice of them. Nice to meet everyone. I agree with that. Okay. Yes, I mean, I'm glad that we could help you through the process of reading some horror. I'm going to just mark where we got up to. So the way it's going to work, I'm going to chat to the people on screen and get their responses to my questions. And then if you want to answer in the comments too, I will pull up some of the answers on screen so we can get your views. I can already tell I'm not going to get through all the comments because it's going really crazy. So thank you everybody for commenting. Sorry if I don't get to yours. So my first question, let's jump right in there. Was this book a hit or a miss? Did we like it? And if you give star ratings, what star rating would you give it? I'm going to start with Elizabeth this time. What did you think of Frozen Charlotte?
Amy, I think you know what I think of this book.
Yeah, I know. I can guess for all of you, but I don't want to presume.
I talk about this book so much. So this is actually my second time reading it. And it's funny because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I read a book, the first time I'll give it a particular rating, but then during the reread, like things start coming out and you kind of think about things a little bit differently and you might change your rating. But this book is solid 5 both times.
Awesome.
Like, on the favorites of all time list, this one and the prequel as well. Just solid, great book.
Oh, that's a good start. How do you feel, Katrina? Are you as enthused as Elizabeth about this one?
I did really enjoy it.
Good.
I would say my only critique is that I wanted a little bit more of Frozen Charlotte's. Like, I do this because it's like the way the doll is. It's like
Yes.
you can't really move. And then
Just be a
more
frozen
from,
Charlotte doll.
Yeah, and more from the little sister in it.
Yes.
I think like more creepy kid.
I think
vibes.
Lily's could be a whole series, couldn't she? She's
Yeah.
awesome.
She's
Kind of see how
seen some
she
things,
grows up
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, she has. I mean, Charlotte Says, the prequel, I think, has more Charlottes.
Yes.
I can't remember much about it apart from the fact that I really enjoyed it. This is as much as I can ever say about a book I read a while ago. But yeah, definitely give that one a go. I know, did you pick that one up as well, I think, didn't you? So at least you have that if you want to delve more.
I will be reading it, yes. I'm excited.
Awesome. Yay. Okay, how about you, Kelsey? Are you also Team Frozen Charlotte?
Oh, yes. I freaking loved it. It was awesome. You know, I had heard about this book long ago, actually from Elizabeth. With this right now. And I was like, okay, I got to put this on my radar. Been kind of procrastinating. I'm so glad you asked me to do this, Amy, because
Yay.
I had a feeling I would like it just because I tend to like stuff that Elizabeth says, oh, it's really good. We have a lot of similar tastes. And I don't know why I didn't pick it up. It's just like one of those things where you've got so much on your list. But when you asked me, I was like, hell yeah, this is a great excuse. It was a 5-star from me. I actually thought there was a good amount of Frozen Charlotte stuff for me. It wasn't lacking in that area for me specifically. I actually thought it was way darker than I thought it would be for a YA book. I thought the imagery was wonderful, in depth. I could picture things, like just the things, where it went surprised me in terms of some of the violence, some of the just the descriptions of what the dolls were trying to make everyone do. It was wonderful. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was great choice.
Excellent. Let us know in the comments if you agree with us. But I will tell you a little bit. So this is, if people don't know, Frozen Charlotte is from the Red Eye series, and I do feel that these books, they're edited very well in that I think the authors aren't encouraged to hold back, and it's not a case of, oh, this is a YA audience, so we need to tone it down. I think these authors lean into the fact that teenagers can handle loads of things. In fact, I think teenagers can handle more than adults, because some of the stuff I read as a teenager, I reread and I'm like, oh man, like I like want to put it in the freezer. I'm not sure I can finish this. 13-year-old me like ate it up. I found this even scarier the second time reading it, and I was really scared. The first time I read it on holiday, and we went on this cave tour, and all I could think when I was in the cave was that I could see Frozen Charlotte in my peripheral vision, and I never,
that's brilliant. That's
I
awesome.
never ever do books creep into my life. Like normally, I can really like close the door on reality and fiction, but it was almost like I was in a nightmare, and Frozen Charlotte's were there. So I think that's a sign of a good horror, that it like made me question reality. I messaged Alex Bell actually afterwards because I'd met her. I think I wasn't an author then, but I'd met her at the event. I was like, you actually gave me a waking nightmare. And she was like, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
She's like, yes, I did.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is that with Alex, she's written like middle grade books and kind of a more gentle adult book, I think. So it's really cool that she's got such breadth in what she can write and depth. I mean, jump to people in the comments are agreeing with us. Oh, my comment says it's showing and it's not showing. Sorry, Claire. I'm like showing it and hiding it. Yeah, I mean, 90s YA horror, I think, is so good. Like a lot of it, there wasn't enough of it in my opinion, but like the point horrors and the Fear Street books that I read, because I was a 90s teen. I was born like in the mid 80s, so that was like the prime real estate for me when I was between like 10 and 13. All the point horrors coming out. It was great. Lots of people are giving love to Rebecca in the comments. Sorry, Kelsey, do you want to go?
I was just going to say, speaking of 90s horror and stuff, the whole statement you made about the Red Eye series really going there and not holding back, I feel like that in a way is a throwback to the kind of horror we had as kids growing up in the 90s. If you look back at things, obviously Fantasia wasn't really released in the 90s, but something like I watched growing up as a kid, Fantasia, we've got Night on Bald Mountain with Chernabog, the big demon guy. Like, you would not see that type of horror today in movies and TV. But what I found with Frozen Charlotte, like really kind of going there, and you're saying that like the entire series is kind of like that, where it doesn't hold back, that just gives me 90s vibes. Like I said, Are You Afraid of the Dark? That was kind of dark for like a kid show, if you really think about it.
Like truthfully scary.
Exactly. So I just think it's really cool that this book went there. I love that. Like, it reminded me of like stuff I watched as a kid, and I was like, I'm at home. Yes.
I wasn't expecting the beginning to be so dark. And
Yes.
be so tragic. either, so I was really hooked by that. I was like, oh wow, this is a bummer and sad, and you have to find out what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I've mentioned that this is going to be a spoiler chat, but just heads up, it is spoilers because I'm about to go there with some spoilers. So yeah, I was surprised the bit that you're mentioning. Like I thought it was going to be like a buddy book where two friends were going to find out what happened, and then it's like, oh, one of the friends doesn't make it. And I liked the fact that the ghosts in the book like were kind of pulled through from that moment, and that like technology allowed, because sometimes I think technology plus ghosts can fall a bit flat if it's not done really well. But I really liked the fact that an app kind of ruined everything at the beginning of this book,
Well, and
and
I
gave a
mean,
real
Ouija boards is
drive.
a big thing for me too. Like I love Ouija boards. So the way they work that in there, and then the creepy doll, and then the girl shows up like in the restaurant and she thinks she can see, like it was the whole thing. It was done really, really well.
Yeah, I liked it right off the bat. I was like, oh, I'm really into this. I didn't know there was going to be a Ouija board thing in this, so I was hooked.
Yeah, it ticks so many boxes, doesn't it, with the dolls and the Ouija boards and
Yes.
like creepy children. I'm just going to mention Caroline said in the comments that
Thank you,
she's just
Caroline.
subscribed to all of our
Thank
channels.
you.
I think she already subscribed to mine, but subscribe to the others. And I have linked to the other three's channels or my husband linked, I can't take credit for the tech. He linked in the sort of title description bit, so you can go and follow everybody's channels. Lots of people are saying Frozen Charlotte was a hit for them as well. 4
Yay.
stars from Jen. 5 stars. Excellent.
Yeah, I want to read Charlotte Says too, really
So
bad.
good.
Yeah.
I couldn't pick a favorite out of the two of them. I love them so
That
much.
makes me excited.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I liked all the lore in
Yes.
this one at first too. I was like, ooh, I like this. Getting to know the history of the schoolhouse. The dark
Okay, well, let's go
history.
there with well, like you've kind of bridged us beautifully into the future questions. So let's talk a little bit about the lore. I don't know about you, but I love it when a book like this has some depth and story that feels really real. Do you want to start, Katrina? Like, what did you make of that? You said you enjoyed how Alex did it. Like, what were your thoughts about the kind of the setting and the myth and how everything linked together?
I liked how I already forgot her name. I know I wrote it down. Sophie. I liked how Sophie went on her own to like figure out what was going on or the history of the house, because that's like the first thing you do when there's like a haunted thing to do. And the people in the town were just like, well, a teacher died like this, and she's finding stuff out on her own, and how dark it was, and then how there was like another reveal in the history. I thought it was done really well. It was like layered. It was like you're given a little bit here, and then you're given a little bit more, and then you're getting the full story. And I really liked it. But I'm sure there's way more in Charlotte Says.
Yeah, I think there is. Maybe Elizabeth can help us with that because she seems to have a better memory than me. How about you, Elizabeth? Did you enjoy the mythology side of this? And does Charlotte Says give us a little bit more of that from your
Yeah,
recollection?
so I hadn't heard the whole mythology of the Frozen Charlotte, like the poem and the dolls and the whole thing. So like after a few chapters of where we have like a little bit of the poem at the beginning, I'm like, is this an actual thing? Like so then it kind of, I love it when books do this too, where it kind of leads a little bit into like research and that sort of thing. There's other books that I've read recently too. The Last Apprentice series has a lot of lore and a lot of mythology, and I also just recently finished Maggie's Grave. I don't know if any of you guys have read it, but
No.
that's fantastic. Oh my
I
god,
want to.
like
I
mind-blowing
love
book.
it.
So good. So like you have that Scottish lore of like an actual place that exists and then this
Okay.
fiction that's written around it. So I love when books can do that, and you can go kind of do your own research and you're like, wow, this is an actual thing, and you can get the little Frozen Charlotte dolls. Like I want to have like a little setup with my book and some Frozen Charlotte dolls.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I do need to buy some Frozen Charlotte dolls. I know that that's probably not a great idea. I kept looking at them when I was reading the book. I was like looking online. Some of them look like cheap kind of replicas. I'd like a real one, please. I did a bit of research, and it's interesting how some people tell you, yes, the Frozen Charlotte dolls definitely were little dead dolls, and some researchers have kind of said that that's a bit of a myth. And I like the fact that it's not really clear. Like even when you try and research concrete, like the fact that these little dolls existed, that's a concrete fact. But what they were intended as and whether it linked to that poem seems to be a bit up for discussion. So I love that. There's this whole mystique around it. And obviously, I don't know what Alex came to first, whether it was the poem or the dolls, but it obviously sparked off this whole idea, which is really cool. Have you got anything to add, Kelsey? I know we've talked in quite a bit of depth about that.
Well, I just love the setting of the haunted school and how she saw the photograph on the wall, the black and white photograph with the girl with the blindfold, and that kind of led her to, like, looking into things more besides what was already going on around everything. But I like how she was already freaked out by the photograph and, like, she felt like something was amiss. I thought that was really well woven into the story. And just the school as a setting, I could almost, like, picture it, the different rooms, the sharp, like, stairs leading downwards. I really like that. It wasn't just like a haunted house, it was like a creepy old school. I think that just gave it an extra level, which I
And I don't know
enjoyed.
about you guys, but like the whole fact that it takes place on like the Isle of Skye, and you can imagine that it's like misty and foggy all the time and windy and everything. So it just adds to that whole atmosphere of the story. And
Yeah,
I thought it was done really well.
the imagery is amazing, isn't it? There's all this, like, the restricted set, like you said, the setting being isolated and cut off, and the cliffs right there, and they're locked into the gates of this actual, like, the fence of the place. And the imagery, like, you just knew, is it called Chekhov's gun, that thing that you see all the stuff that's going to hurt people as the story goes on, like the stairs and things, like, yep, that's going to go wrong for them later.
Yeah.
And it was just so chilling. Like, I think it was the photograph, like you said, Kelsey, that really sticks out in my mind as something like the girl with her eyes covered. You just absolutely needed to unearth it. And I thought the main character was really good at doing that. She spends quite a bit of time on her own, which for me sometimes can kind of pull me out of it. I like a bit of interaction. But she had like a really rich internal world going on. So I think it was really good. What did you all think of the characters? I nearly went Kelsey then for a minute. I was like, y'all, what did you all think of the characters? I can't pull it
You're
off,
turning
Kelsey.
southern on me.
I don't have the proper accent for that. What did you all, she says in her English accent, think of the characters, and were there any that stood out for you as particularly likable or awful? I think we're probably going to agree on the awful, but just in case we have different views on that.
Oh no,
Kelsey,
I loved Piper. No, I'm just
yeah. What do you think about the characters, Kelsey? Do you have any firm favourites or despicable characters?
I loved all the characters. I thought they were well rounded. I liked the little sister. Like, at first you thought she was creepy and menacing, but then, like, you just come to know that she's a little misunderstood and she's had a troubled life, obviously. And oh my god, the evil skeleton thing.
Oh yeah,
That was so
good.
fascinating. Like, she wants to cut out her own skeleton. Morbid, but I could see, like, she was scarred by this story that she was told by someone she trusts and loves, and that trust is just being manipulated and used against her. I just thought that was so sad. But I love the little sister. And as we get further into the story and find out she's actually a good character instead of a creepy character, I like her even more. So it worked in, like, her favor, because I thought she was really well rounded. And of course, our main character, I love her too, Sophie. I thought she was really, really had a deep internal dialogue that I enjoyed. I loved how she got freaked out in the bathtub. That was a wonderful scene that I could almost, like, feel. Like, can you imagine sitting in a bath of ice? Like, I know athletes do that, but, like, for real, I can't. I don't like the cold. So, like, to me, that was just like, ugh. And she was describing it almost like it was so cold that it was burning. And the times I've been the coldest, I feel that. Like, I have felt that. So that just related. Was so.
Yeah, I think she said it felt like needles.
Yes.
Too, which goes into
It was just so well done. I really liked all the characters. But yeah, the main character and the little sister, I think, are my two favorites.
How about you, Katrina? Did you have any strong feelings either way about any of the characters?
Yeah, I really liked the younger sister. I wanted a little bit more creepy kid stuff. I know she was creepy, but I was like, I could have done a little bit more and then her be, like, totally adorable. And I liked Cameron a lot. I liked how he was just so, like, mean at the beginning, and then he's like, oh, I'm cool. Actually, I'm a good guy. And yeah, I liked that a lot. And I do like how evil Piper was. I thought it was great. The mimic thing, the voice mimic.
Yeah.
Guys, that creeped me out. That gave me, like, goosebumps. I don't know. That just freaked me out when her voice just her mouth. I just picture it and it being like somebody else's voice or something. I don't know. That's so weird. And then what was the parrot's name?
I can't remember his name. It's in
Dark
front of me.
Tom?
Dark Tom.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
Dark Tom. I felt like him being a pet was kind of foreshadowing finding out that Piper was a mimic, because he would mimic people.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure what happened to Dark Tom. I don't know if
She
made it out.
rescued it. She
Yeah, they
rescued
rescued-
actually. So to
I
me,
know
like
the cat
maybe
was rescued.
like because Katrina, you just made that really cool comparison about Dark Tom and Piper both being mimics. Maybe she felt an affinity for Dark Tom, which was rare because she obviously didn't feel an affinity for like anything or love like a normal person would. She's clearly a psychopath, but it said, I believe there was a sentence that said she was standing outside with Dark Tom. So
Yeah.
she literally made an effort to go inside and get Dark Tom. I think that says something about her connection. Like the only living thing she gave a shit about, not even her family. Like it was Dark Tom. And maybe because of the mimicking or something. I don't know. They had something in common.
Yeah, definitely. And he sort of, I don't know, he wears his personality to the extent that parents have a personality. Like, you kind of can see what kind of character he is, whereas everything was hidden, wasn't it? Like, he's miserable and kind of says a lot of stuff from the start, and she is the complete opposite. I liked the fact that Alex Bell gave you this quite large cast of characters for the isolated setting, and you had to kind of figure out who you could trust and who you couldn't. Do you have anything to add, Elizabeth, about the characters? Were there any that stood out in your mind?
Yeah, I really liked the little sister too. Lilius had that creepy kid down at the beginning. Like the whole evil skeleton thing was just weird. How like they had to lock up the knives because she wanted to like dig out her collarbone and stuff. And like, oh my god,
That when she holds the knife to her head at
yeah,
the end, I was like, no.
Yeah, it's so sad.
so good. But I think Piper as the antagonist, like I love when books have an antagonist that you literally loathe them. And I think this is one of those. And just her whole mentality of like, I'm gonna make my sister freak out by sneaking this bone into her meal and like trying to act all like nice and sweet and I'm so beautiful and nobody's ever gonna say anything about me sort of thing. And then Cameron is very much like almost like the Professor Snape kind of character where you're not really sure. It's like, are you good? Are you not good? We're not really too sure. But I gotta say, the father in this scenario is how removed from your own family are you? Like you don't realize
he's like painting. He's like, what's going on?
But apparently he suspects her kind of. He paints her as an evil mermaid apparently, but he doesn't want anyone to see.
No, I mean, parents are a pain in YA books because as a parent, I'm like, I wouldn't have my child anywhere near this situation. So I think the parents have to be, like, I kind of was aware of that when I was writing mine, like, oh, the parents are really terrible in this book because they kind of have to be, or the characters wouldn't get into this mess. Like, and her mom and dad as well are just like, oh, you've been through a really bad time. I'm just going to send you away for a little while. Like, you just go. We'll go on. Do they go on holiday? I think, like, they go on holiday. When she's just suffered a massive trauma.
Yeah, after her best friend dies.
Yeah.
They're like, bye.
Yeah.
Go stay with your creepy uncle or your creepy cousins.
Yeah, bad YA parenting just all around, really.
Well, like that dinner, the first night she's there, I'm like, holy shit, like, she's, like, in the worst situation ever after her best friend dies. They're like, yo, she, like, hates her skeleton. This other one, like, he's all grumpy and doesn't want to talk to anybody. And the dad's just like, can you please be normal? Come on.
Is he an artist? Yeah, he's an artist, isn't he? He's like, I just want to paint. Is that too much to ask children, please?
And then at the end, he's like, oh, I knew she was evil.
Yeah, he's like, did she try to kill someone again? Like, come on, dude. You should have been a little bit more proactive than this.
Yeah, very short book.
Yeah.
The dad just takes everyone off the island and the book finishes at the beginning of the book. Yeah. I love that how YA authors have to find ways around this. It's like, oh no, the mobile phone doesn't work. Oh no, my parents are out of the country. Like we do have to like really work at it to make the main characters have no way out.
Yeah.
A little bit. I'm just going to jump to a couple of comments. I'm sorry, I know I'm missing a few. Yes, so the others in the series, I think Charlotte Says and Frozen Charlotte obviously go together. And there is Bryony Pierce wrote 2 called Savage Island and Cruel Castle, which are linked to each other. But generally, you can pick the others up in any order. So if you see a blurb that you like the look of, I recommend Whiteout, which is vampires in a remote location. A bunch of teenagers go on a ski trip and they get cut off from the world. They're at the top of this mountain and vampires descend on them and they go for the teachers first. So the teenagers are just left at the mercy of these really bloodthirsty vampires. It's excellent. And again, you're reading it and you're like, this is YA. This is YA. It's so good.
I'm
Like
intrigued
blood,
by Fur, F-I-R, I think it is. That one, I'm gonna have that one on my radar for maybe like, this coming winter, perhaps, I hope.
Yes, definitely. And there are quite a few, I think, that are nicely linked to like times of the year. So you can probably like plan them out through, like drop them out through your year. I mean, for me, I thought it was very extreme, but Sharon is obviously very brave. But yeah. And I love that about horror. One of my other questions is about that, actually. So maybe that might be a good moment to discuss that. So I've mentioned before that my no-go area is young children because I have one. So there are things in horror that now, like if I see that in the blurb, I'm like, nope, not for me. And if it comes up in a book, like I just started how to sell a haunted house. Sell a haunted house?
Sell.
And she was at the beginning, I don't think it's too much of a spoil to say she's pregnant. I was like, oh my God, am I not going to be able to read this book? But I read on, I was like, okay, that's okay. I can cope with the way this is going. Like, I didn't know if that was going to go in a really bad direction. So is there anything for you in horror that is a complete yes? I'd say for me, the complete yeses, or if anybody says slasher, I'm like, yes, please. And children, very young children are a no-go. Like Lilius's age and up, yeah, okay, I can cope. Maybe when my child gets that age, I'll not, but are there any absolute yeses or absolute nos in horror for you? I'm wondering. How about you, Katrina? Do you have any yes, please, or no, thank you areas of horror?
I'm pretty open to reading all subgenres of horror. I will say if I see like a trigger for animal cruelty, that kind of makes me pause a little and be like, I don't know. Like, I'll read extreme horror all day, but if there's animal cruelty in it, it bums me out. Like Malphite's, what is his book, Black Mouth? There is like really harsh animal cruelty in it out of nowhere for no point. And I was like, what was the point of this? Like, I read extreme horror and this is not extreme horror, but there's like, it was so violent and out of nowhere, it just like put me out. And I was like bummed, and I haven't picked up Malphite since then. But yeah, I think I would say like probably animal cruelty if I know about it in there. But I get why it does happen in some books. Like Grady Hendrix has a book that has a notorious animal cruelty part in it, but it's done off page and it's done for a reason. So
yeah, this book hinted at that, didn't it? There was a similar thing in this where it kind of says that something has happened, and I was like, ooh, again, that's like a biggie, but it kind of is really brief, and I think that when that happens in horror, I tend to be okay. But yeah, I think definitely animal cruelty is another one, and if it comes from nowhere, you do feel a bit kind of blindsided, and I think all horror really that is completely gratuitous, and like if something comes and it's pointless, I'm just like, I can't cope with it. Like I can cope with gore if it's meaningful gore, but I don't like it if it's just violence for violence's sake. Are there any areas of horror then that you really love? If you see like a really niche genre, do you go, yes, I need to read that book?
I really like slashers. I like really like fun, cheesy stuff. Like I don't need it to be like heavy, emotional, like stuff all the time. Especially recently, I've noticed like I've been leaning towards more just fun popcorn horror movies and books. Like Knock at the Cabin. I read Cabin at the End of the World a couple years ago, and that book is so tense and sad, and it's like it's draining, I guess is the word. And I was like, I really want to see this and like support this movie, but also I don't want to support this movie because I don't want to be drained afterwards. It's just so emotional and tense, and I'm like, I'll go see. I went and saw Megan like opening day. I was like, I'm there, but like now I'm like, I don't really need the emotional horror, tense like torture stuff now. I'm like, just be
Yes.
fun. Just be a fun slasher. Just kill somebody and like get on with it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's where adult horror sometimes pushes me to uncomfortable places. Like if it delves really far into grief and kind of stays there a while, I find that difficult. And yeah, if it takes itself really seriously as well, I think if things are fun, people can be being murdered, but if it has like a slight kind of like a scream, it still kind of feels upbeat, even though people are like dropping like flies.
Yeah, have a unique kill. Be done, you know? You're
Yes,
good.
yeah, exactly. Have a party in between, you know.
Yeah.
How about you, Elizabeth? Are there any real bits you love about horror or things that you don't like?
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of echo the same thing, like I don't like extended, really graphic violence, like you said, violence for violence sake sort of thing, or just being gruesome just to have the shock factor. Anything that has like extended SA or anything like that, of course, young children. I just read a book. Actually, I didn't read it. I started a book a little while ago. Now I can't even remember the name of it. And I DNF'd it after 2 pages because of what was happening to this young child. And I'm like, I can't do it. Absolutely not. And I don't even have children. But
Yeah, I don't think you have to 100% be able to relate if that makes sense. Like with the
yeah,
animal cruelty, like I don't have pets, but still I'm like, nope, nope, not
yeah.
for me.
And animal cruelty is the same thing for me as well. And I actually read a book last summer. It was called Campfire, and it had a scene of animal cruelty in it for absolutely no reason. And I'm like, there was no point to have this in the story. And it completely, like, I was like, this is stupid. Because I understand if you're doing something for a specific reason or if it ties into the story, but it really didn't. It was just put in there. So stuff like that. And I'm the same way with my movies too. Like I love slashers, like give me a Scream or something like that. Books, Clown in a Cornfield, great
Yes.
book. I haven't read the second one yet, but great book. Great slasher, great story, unique kills, great kills. But you know, when it comes to like a lot of torture or like I said, like extended scenes of violence, like I'm no thanks. But anything like, and I mean, I think most people know this about me, like anything with haunted houses, ghosts, creepy kids, the spooky atmosphere, that sort of thing. That's kind of my brand of horror.
Yes, definitely. I kind of feel like I agree with all of you on all of this so far. How about you, Kelsey? You were nodding quite a bit. Are there things that you agree with that we've said? Anything new to add about things? I'm assuming slasher might be a thing that you like.
I like slasher movies a lot better than books. I even had like a slasher readathon and watchathon last year. But the funny thing is, like a lot of the books I was reading that are considered slashers to me didn't feel like a pure slasher. Like I know some people consider Brother by Anya Alborn to be a slasher, and I didn't think it was a slasher. I thought it was a wonderful book. I gave it 5 stars, but it didn't feel like a slasher film. It anyway. So I just feel like there's it's more difficult to get a pure slasher book, but they are out there. Like Tastes Like Candy, love that book. I think that's a great slasher book that has emotion depth. It's actually unique in that you actually give a hoot about the characters, you know. But when it comes to other favorite subgenres, I really love coming of age horror. I love coming of age horror. I don't know why. Really just coming of age stories in general, I seem to really relate. I guess it's about the nostalgia of growing up, the loss of innocence, the struggle to grow up. I just love that for some reason, even though it's, you know, it's the same tropes over and over again in those books a lot of times. It's just authors find a different way to reveal them, to do them, to write about them. So yeah, that would be a go-to for me. Also, Animal Attack, because it's fun. It's usually meaningless. It's usually like the ultimate trash, but I freaking love Animal Attack books. There are terrible ones that are not good, that are boring, but otherwise, I usually love those. And then other than that, I do love. I like extreme horror. I like disturbing horror. I literally have no triggers at all. I will not stop reading a book for any reason because I'm so effed up. I'm so messed up.
And you're
like,
so sweet, Kelsey. Like, what is that? Like, why are the sweetest people like the ones who like give me more darkness?
I'm just like, haha, I'll read anything. I'm so messed up. Anyway, it's not. That's not to say I will like everything. That everything
Yes.
I think will be good. And it's sometimes I'll think, oh, that didn't need to be there. I'm not okay with certain things just because the author wanted to freak somebody out. But if it has a meaning, like, I will not stop reading because of a certain thing. But I do think, content warnings are important. I understand other people having triggers. It's just that I have none, and it's messed up. Anyway, I can't explain why, but I'm just
It's
like,
so
la, la,
funny
la.
because Kelsey and I agree on so much, but I watch her videos and I'm like, how can you read that?
I know.
I have a healthy appreciation for the fact that she can.
So if Kelsey tells you read this book, it's really scary, then you need to approach it really cautiously.
Well, I would know, like, if I was recommending something just to Elizabeth, I would know she doesn't like the ooey gooey, as she says. She doesn't like the extreme ooey gooey. She likes, like, the lighter ooey gooey. She doesn't like the, like, really graphic, gory, like, people getting stabbed left and right for no reason type of thing. I would know what her triggers are, and I would know not to recommend something. But yeah, there are a lot of things I like, and there's just things that I don't like. I will say the one thing that actually freaks me out is eyes. If an eye, like, for instance, the needle stuff.
Stick a needle in your eye game.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was getting freaked out. And, like, so I won't stop reading, but that gets to me, is eyes. And I wear contacts, and I've said this story before, so I'm sorry if people have already heard me say it, if they're familiar with me, but I don't even know how I put my contacts in, because when I first went to the eye doctor and they're like, you need contacts, I was like, oh no, I'll never be able to do it. And I still to this day don't know how I got through it, and I don't know how I do it every day, because, like, just the idea of touching an eye, it freaks me out. Blech.
Yeah, I'm not good with needles, so the needle thing did, like, eyes, needles plus eyes is not great. Eyes in general, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, needles, I remember the Saw films, I got so far into them, and then there was one particular bit with needles. I was like, I'm out. I've got to the point that I can't cope with it.
There is a movie that I stopped watching because of an eye thing. It's called Opera by Dario Argento. I turned it
with
off.
the needles?
Yes.
It's on the cover, yeah.
Yeah, they tape needles.
And they tape the eyelids open,
Yes.
and there's taped needles.
Yes.
Like, here.
So if you blink, your eyes, like, your eyelids would be, like, shredded. I can't, so I turned it off. See, I'm getting red because it, like, freaks me out.
I think it's, like, on the cover, too. It's, like, a really intense Dario Argento cover, and it's, like, the girl with the tape needles, and it's, like, bloody, and it just says opera.
Okay, so mental note, don't watch that one.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking that. I'm glad they put that on the cover to kind of, like, I know it will scare some people, but at least the content warning is kind of there. Like, if you don't like the look of this thing right here. I'm just going to bring up this comment because Andres agrees with us. Frozen Charlottes should be put in the freezer. I mean, I think I might have done that right at the beginning. Lock them in the freezer. Done. But we know that throwing them into the sea sounds like it did not work. I feel a bit scared for the people who found this.
What if they float back?
Yeah, I know. Like, didn't a child find the container at the end? Like, look, mummy, I've got all these broken dollies, and the mum was like, I don't want these in my home.
That's kind of cool too, because the story is continuing, right?
It's like Jumanji, but even worse.
It is just like Jumanji with the washing up on the beach.
Yeah,
that's like my favorite thing too in horror, is kind of like that. It's not over.
Yes,
I
the
love
open
that.
door. Yeah, it's very good.
Anya Alborn does that, like, in almost every one of her endings. It's like, hello.
I do love a good, ambiguous ending.
Yeah.
Sorry, comments are popping up, like, I'm clicking, and then, like, 5 minutes later they're coming up, so it's kind of coming in the middle of the conversation. Sorry about that. So yeah, it took me aback as well. It, like, was scarier than I remembered it being. So yeah, and we're really lucky in the UK. I don't know what other countries are like for this, but there's some really good conventions, like the Young Adult Literary Convention is just a bunch of young adult authors that you can meet all over a couple of days, and authors do quite a lot of events in the UK. So I've been to, like, book signings and panels and stuff. Like, I went to one the other day that had 3 authors, and I think it was like a few pounds to get in, and you get to see 3 great authors talking about their books. So yeah, I do think we are very lucky, especially because the UK is so small. It's quite easy to travel around. I mean, I suppose it depends, doesn't it, on whether the shock is the kind of what draws you to horror or not. I do get that. And I think that, clicking the wrong thing. With it being YA as well, sometimes YA rattles along at a pace, doesn't it, through things. And I like that. But I think if you're more used to adult horror or fantasy and things, like, that dwells a little bit more in the moment. I think YA, especially these books, can feel a bit like go, 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 horror,
Well, I
horror,
kind
horror.
of liked the pacing. I thought that was a
Yeah.
pro of the book.
I loved it, but I can see, like, if you're, like you said, more along the lines of adult where things are kind of meandering and it's spending time, you know, but isn't that the wonderful thing about horror, that there is so much different that you can choose from, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. And I love with books that you can kind of read a book and have a conversation with somebody like Lizzie and I, who just commented, read a lot of the same books. And she recommended My Heart as a Chainsaw to me last year, which was one of my favorite reads of the year. And then other books, you just have a completely different opinion. And I think that's why this book club is great, that people, I hope that you feel you can come and say, this book didn't work for me, or I'm going to opt out this month because I don't read fantasy. You know, it's just like a really relaxed thing that hopefully it'll get us all reading and talking about YA, but you can kind of take it or leave it. It's interesting because I'm running it. I'm reading some books that somebody's not happy. I thought it might be a toddler that had first made their appearance, but it's
I'm
a dog.
sorry.
No, it's fine. It was going to be one of us. Somebody was going to kind of join in with the proceedings.
I don't know what he's barking about. Probably someone's near our backyard. Like, oh no.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, so I hopefully if you don't enjoy some of the books, then there'll be something different. Like next month's fantasy isn't something that I would normally pick up, a fantasy book. Recently I've not read much of it, but I'm really enjoying it. So it's nice that it can kind of hopefully give you some books to try that you wouldn't normally pick up. Let's just do a few more comments. Yes, I'm glad you loved them, and then it didn't put you off some of the people if it surprised you. Yeah, I haven't read any VC Andrews books. I feel like I've seen some of you talking about them. Like, have you talked about them, Kelsey? Or
I've not read any, but I did reference one in a video recently. I think I read a book called Pin by Andrew Niederman, and Andrew Niederman became like the ghostwriter for VC Andrews later for her later books. And I could see why, because I know what Flowers in the Attic, which is VC Andrews' most famous book, I know what that's about. And Pin, like, yeah, I understand why he wrote for VC Andrews later.
It was interesting in the 90s. Like, I read Point Horror and then was like, okay, what do I read next? I'm going to go Stephen King and Clive Barker. That's a normal progression, isn't it? So I think there was this gap between like the kind of quite pulpy sort of lighter horror, and then you had to go to something else. And yeah, I'm surprised.
Anne Rice was my go-to.
Yeah, I read I think that was my first proper vampire book when I was maybe 11. So I learned a lot from that book. I was there reading on holiday. My parents like, they don't know what I'm reading.
It's funny because I was the same way. I learned a lot from Anne Rice when I was, 12, 13, 14.
She taught me some things about, I think I've got her to thank for like this whole like vampire room behind me for the books I've written. Like the second book, I kind of put like a few nods to her in, and then she passed away while I was working on that one. And it's just like, there's very few people that have had that amount of impact on me. And I love that with horror, that I think Anne Rice's books, you can put them in different genres, but like horror can leave such a mark on people. It tends to be written off. Like people sometimes say to me, like today somebody said, do you write books for children or do you write proper books? And I was like, And I get that about horror as well. Like when are you going to write something, like kind of sensible fiction? But I think that horror can be, like when I think of the books that have had an impact on me, horror is definitely.
Well, and I don't know about you guys, but even to try to find a horror section, like when you go into a bookstore, sometimes like it's just non-existent, or it's put in with the science fiction or the fiction and literature section. Or I go to a secondhand bookstore sometimes, and it's literally in the back. Like you have to go into the back of their warehouse where the workers are working, and like into next to nowhere. Like it's not out in the main part of the bookstore even. It's like, why is it so tucked away? It's almost like it's a taboo thing,
I don't know, like I think some parents like don't want their kids to read horror, but I think that horror is a place where you can explore lots of issues about growing up. Like there's some stuff in there that I probably shouldn't have read when I read it, but I kind of learned a lot about friendship from it as well. And I know that there's some really inappropriate content that maybe in modern times wouldn't be in there. But I think you can get a lot out of horror. Just to lighten the mood slightly after being so serious. Claire feels that, maybe that may be something you do after it. And,
No,
Jennifer's
not.
encouraging Claire to be the person who does it first. Yeah, I mean, put Ouija board in anything. Like we did try Ouija boards when I was younger, and thank goodness nothing happened. Like there wasn't the person at the party who kind of pushed it around. And a weird thing on a slight sidebar, I went with a friend, and I remember this distinctly. we went to this like stately home, and she showed me this weird slab that had like tiny handprints around it, like 4 sets of them. And I was like, I'm sure that's some sort of like Ouija thing. And I asked her about it years later, and she had no recollection that she'd taken me to see this weird slab. I was like, okay, this needs to go in a story because that's terrifying. So yeah,
Katrina uses a Ouija board for her TBR game.
Yeah, this is true.
I was like, no.
Yeah, I've never had anything happen. So I feel like if something happened when I was younger with a Ouija board or something, then I probably wouldn't have one as for my game or my TBR. But it's really old. I've had this board, oh gosh, I think since I was like right out of high school. It's like a glow in the dark one. It's like been through it.
So it's never...
I need to get a new one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's never got you in any trouble. I don't know. I'd stay clear of those new ones, though, because you never know what you're bringing in with that one. Like, yours is safe, but who knows? So Claire says that she hadn't heard of the poem, liked the integration. I need to know what these museums were, Claire. We're on the same continent, so I feel like you can send me. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, cool.
I haven't even thought of doing that, but yes, I'm going to do that.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
That is a very
great
good one.
idea.
So Jen asked about the Last Apprentice series. Was it you, Elizabeth, that mentioned that? Yeah, is that the one you were talking about?
Yes, lots of lore in that one.
Yes, awesome. I need to try that. I've been trying to jot down books. If you see me looking away, that's me writing down like the books that you are recommending. Like I always get so many out of these. Yeah, I mean that, but I did have a moment of like frozen spiky dolls in the drink. Yeah, but that went on my list of things I do not like, but also liked at the same time. Yes, I agree that the location was excellent. Lovable but terrifying. That's like the tagline for Lilius, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The evil skeleton. That was one of the best parts.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is like when I do the cat thing on my sprints and a cat meows, like all the cats in the rooms go, hello, me. So glad we're keeping you on your toes, the other Kelsey in the room, in the virtual room. Yeah, I mean, there were so many red flags in this book, weren't there? Like, yes, Alex knew
I
how
have to say, I think there's even more of that sort of thing in Charlotte Says, which is great. So, Katrina, I think you might like the second one better than the first one.
Ooh.
So, interestingly, we have some people who aren't sure about Cameron. People who agree with the absent parents of YA. Yes.
Like that whole flashback scene of, her and Rachel. Like, oh my god, when you find out what really happens, I was like, holy heck. Like, she's like giggling while like her sister literally has a broken leg down there. Like, come on, how more evil can you be?
No, I'd forgotten about that. And when I got to that scene, I was like, surely this isn't going to pan out how. Oh, yes, it did. Alex wrote another book that came out, I think, last October called The Lighthouse that had similar vibes of a girl who goes to stay in a creepy lighthouse because her dad is studying the birds on the island, as you do. So there's creepy birds, creepy, like, ghostiness, haunted lighthouse, isolated setting again. So that one, if you like this, ticks a lot of the same boxes. Just going to kind of keep going and see if there's anybody saying anything new in the comments. Sharon agrees. Sociopath, very well done. Yeah, I mean, I think Alex must be, I'm sure she mentioned at the event I saw that she read point horrors. I think a lot of us kind of modern horror authors were raised on point horror. Yeah, I should have said that as my trope, really. If anybody does say vampires, I will read a book, any kind of book. I mean, Elizabeth and I reread one recently that didn't necessarily stand the test of time, didn't we? The Mark series. But I will, if anybody says vampires, I'm generally in, sometimes to my detriment. Yeah, people saying, again, animals, we're not a fan of that in books. How to Sell a Haunted House. I should probably mention that Claire has a podcast with her friend Amanda. They're hilarious, called Fictional Hangover. And one of the taglines is the only cure for a fictional hangover is another vampire book. and all vampires all the time. So if that doesn't sway you to listen to them, I don't know what. They got me to say things like they're just geniuses. Like we were talking about, like if cheese fell on the floor, would you eat it? Like what foods are acceptable to drop on the floor and eat, and what foods aren't? And I was like, I love
Definitely
cheese.
not
so...
cheese.
Yeah, I know it's gross, but I love cheese. Depends on the floor, and like this is the quality conversation you will get in a fiction
like
hangover
that.
chat. Like they get you to really, really challenge.
Speaking of vampires, like I know
Yes.
that Amy is a crazy Buffy fanatic, and I know Kelsey is a crazy Buffy fanatic. So Katrina, are you on the team Buffy train?
Oh yes.
Yay!
Oh yeah, I'm Team Spike.
Yes, same here.
Spike.
I think the only team Angel we have is Cameron.
I know.
Cameron, can you just come and join us? Like, in fact, we should do that. Can we please do a Buffy chat and bring Cameron on?
He'll never get swayed. Trust me.
Do you know what though? I'm with him. Like 13, 14-year-old me thought Angel was perfection, and the fact he turned evil.
I always hated Angel too.
I did see. I loved Angel. Then watched it when I was at uni, and was like, oh my god, how did I miss Spike? Like, where was I when Spike was in it when I was younger? I may have met James Masters about 6 times, or maybe more. Like my husband's probably going to come in the comments and shame me and say it's like 15. And I met him like in Boston. I met him at some stuff in the UK. Like he's really lovely. So like awesome character and awesome like person as well. We're doing well in the comments. I'm just going to do a few more and then we'll jump to another question. Yes, agree with all vampires all the time.
I like carnival setting. That is another setting. Like if you're carnival set, I'll be like, hell yeah. I mean, Katrina just did a clown reading vlog, which was really good. You should check that out. But I love a good carnival. Yeah.
I am quite scared of clowns in general. So in fact, I put them in my second book for that reason. I was like, I'm going to put some things in here that I'm actually scared of and see if I can scare other people as well. And I put a content warning on the door of the room. So if you don't like clowns, like literally you can skip the bit. There's like warning, please don't come in here. There are clowns. So Sharon saying about not having triggers. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh, Stephen wants us to say hello to everybody. So hi, Stephen. And you're in the right place. You don't own any horror stories. You know, get them from the library, but we can help you out with horror recommendations. We are definitely team horror here. So we have hopefully a little bit more time if you're still okay, the three of you, to chat a little longer and ask just a couple more questions, I think, because I think we've gone through most of the things I wanted to discuss. So what did you think about the plot? Did it keep you engaged? Did it keep you guessing? Was there anything that surprised you? Kelsey, do you want to start us off with that? What did you think? So we talked a lot about characters and setting, but how did the plot work for you?
I loved the plot. I thought there was a lot going on. It was fast-paced. I never felt like it was a slog or a chore to pick up. In fact, when I put it down, I had to spread it throughout a couple of days, but I could have seen myself finishing it much faster. It was just, you know how life is. But in terms of the engagement that I felt while reading, I thought it was very well written, very well done. The plot worked for me. I thought, everything developed really uniquely and it was set out perfectly. I think there was a time where I might have guessed it was really Piper who was the bad one. But does that detract from me? No, it doesn't. It's not like, oh, I had an inkling that she could be bad after all. It doesn't mean that hinders anything or it warrants less of a star rating or something like that. Yeah, the plot was wonderful. I enjoyed it.
I think with me, I quite often get a fleeting suspicion and instantly forget it. And then at the end, I'm like, hang on, did I predict that just because I suspected everyone at some point during this book? So yeah, I'd forgotten that Piper was any kind of thing. So I was really suspicious of her, but then I kept flitting between. And I couldn't remember if Lilius was like actually evil or just sweet and misunderstood. So yeah, I loved that, trying to figure out whether Piper was like in it for herself or whether she was actually being nice. And clearly, we know how that turned out. How about you, Elizabeth? How did the plot work for you?
Yeah, it was perfect for me. I really enjoy fast-paced horror where things are set out really, really well. Everything is brought around full circle. It has a nice, tidy little bow on it. And so that really, really worked for me. And I found myself just the way that Alex Bell writes. And like when you get to the end of a chapter, it's kind of like a little bit of a cliffhanger or something like big happens and you want to keep going. There was, I think the first time I read this book, it was like a work night and I ended up staying up half the night to finish it because I literally had to keep going. And then of course we were getting all the reveals with Piper at the end and the flashbacks and everything. So for me, it really worked. It really, really did. I like that kind of fast-paced sort of thriller. Because it kind of breaks up a little bit of the other horror that we're reading too. So it was just perfect.
Yeah, a lot of people contact me because I put suggested stopping places. If you wanted to take the month, I was like, well, this is where you could stop at the 4 points. And quite a few people messaged me on like day 2 of January and went, I just read the whole book in one go. Is that okay? I was like, it's fine. Read the book at your pace. But I think that's a really good sign with horror and YA. I think really well plotted YA, it just pulls you through the book, doesn't it? And you can't stop yourself. Like you said, Kelsey, if life doesn't get in the way, like you would probably sit and just consume this in a really short space of time. How about you, Katrina? Was there anything in the plot that really stood out to you that you liked? What did you think of it?
I liked what Elizabeth was saying too. Like each chapter ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I read this in 2 days or so I pretty much read it almost all in one sitting on ebook in the dark. I was trying to be super spooky about it, and I knew I was going to read it very quickly when I started, so I tried to be like, I'm going to read it very close to this show. I liked the pacing. It hooked me, like I said from the beginning. So twists and turns and the reveals, I think, were done very well. And lots of creepy parts in it. I think the creepiest part for me was when the picture part with the phone. When Sophie takes a picture and it's Rebecca with her hair down on the piano that wasn't even there.
My skin just went, when you said that, my skin just went on both my arms. So I think that's
night with like a blanket over my head with my book light hanging, and I was just like, or not my book. I didn't even need a book light, but I had it on because I was kind of scared.
I don't know about you guys, but like the whole thing with like how they discover the frozen Charlottes are actually like plastered into the wall.
Yeah. And I love how they're like, save us. Like they're like calling out. I love that.
They're in a tree too, right? The tree that's outside.
Yeah.
It creeped me out too. I was like, oh no.
That reminded me of a New Orleans story, which I didn't use in my book because I thought it was too gross. That the Ursuline convent, which I put in the book, which is supposedly where vampires came over from Europe and they sort of stayed in this attic in New Orleans when they arrived, that apparently in the walls, like supposedly as they've excavated bits of this building, they found like human bones, like of people of all different ages, when the vampires like supposedly have just killed people and shoved them into the walls around the convent. I was like, oh, that's a nice fact, maybe too much. Yeah, and I know Alex is really into New Orleans, so I wondered whether sometimes, like, because she wrote a really good book called Music and Malice in Hurricane Town, I think, which is based on a kind of reimagined New Orleans with vampires and lots of cool mythology. So I wondered if that was like a little New Orleans nod in there right from the beginning, because I know that she talked about visiting New Orleans when I was like just writing Mina and the Undead. Claire has beautifully taken us on to my next question. She was saying in an earlier comment that she enjoys horror where the monster is a monster as opposed to human nature, and she recommends Dawn Kurtagich and Kat Ellis. I don't know whether the three of you have read their books, but I would highly recommend the two of them as well. They are both not afraid of leaning into the horror in YA and going into some quite dark psychological and kind of body horror and all kinds of things. So how about the three of you? Do you have any go-to recs if you see this book? Do you think, oh, yes, you should also read this? Kelsey, do you want to start us off? Is there a book that you would recommend? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because actually I think when it comes to creepy dolls, I feel like Katrina would have a ton of great recs for creepy doll books. Me, I just have like creepy ambiance type of books.
Anything like that sounds good. Yeah. So what's your favorite creepy ambiance? I'll start. If you want a minute, you think. I'm going to tell you. Or have you got one? Has one come to mind?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I love a good carnival setting, and I feel like a book that feels YA but isn't is Tastes Like Candy by Ivy Tholen. And that's an indie book. She just released actually a new book with an amazing cover, and I will not stop preaching that book. Like, that book is so underrated in my opinion. I feel like I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's a slasher, but one where you actually care about the characters and get to know the characters. It's not as fast paced as Frozen Charlotte in that you take some time to get to know the main girls, but once they get to this Halloween themed carnival, that's when the slashing takes place, and the kills are some of the most unique kills. So if you like some of like the unique spookiness of Frozen Charlotte, I think you'll find like some enjoyment with the unique type of kills in Tastes Like Candy. And another with great horror imagery. I feel like Frozen Charlotte has some good horror imagery. I feel like there's an author, his name is Mark Morris. He is like a vintage horror writer, so he's got a lot of old school books that are out of print. I've read 2 by him. One's called Toady and one is called Stitch, and they're both adult horror, so it's not YA. And they're very bleak, but I feel like he is super underrated when it comes to his writing. He's actually from the UK. Very wonderful writer. I would suggest anything by Mark Morris, but specifically the ones I've read, Toady and Stitch, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, I wrote Taste Like Candy and put a star by it, and I'm going to write the other one down too because they sound really good. As you were talking, I was thinking of mine, and I would recommend Catherine Foxfield wrote a book called Good Girls Die First, which is a bunch of kids who are brought under kind of mysterious circumstances. I think they get a note each, bringing them to this kind of abandoned amusement park. And I really like authors that can kind of take people to an abandoned situation and then do stuff to them. And it's very dark and kind of doesn't pull any punches in the horror department. So yeah, I'd recommend that one. No dolls, unfortunately, but very good book. And another one of those where like the supernatural is just there and you're like, is it supernatural? Is it real? Because I liked with Frozen Charlotte the way she, at first she's like, is this in my head? Am I just dealing with trauma, or did this really happen? I thought that Alex did that really well too. So yeah, I would recommend Catherine Foxfield's books, particularly Good Girls Die First, but all of them really. How about you, Elizabeth? Do you have any recs for Frozen Charlotte fans?
Yeah, so I have a bunch actually. I'll try to go through them really quickly.
Yeah,
So,
fine.
along the lines of creepy dolls, I know Katrina read this one, The House of Small Shadows by Adam Neville. That one was really, really good. It had very much of a spooky sort of atmosphere. So that one was really good. And then for anybody who really likes the fast-paced sort of plot thrillers, not necessarily creepy dolls, but just if you like that, like you don't want to put it down sort of thing. 2 that I read last year, I think. One was Don't Tell a Soul by Kirsten Miller, and the other one was The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor.
Yes.
Both of those are fantastic books. And then another one, if you're looking for fast-paced sort of horror, not thriller, I would recommend anything by Stephanie Sparks. So there's one that's really, really good called Kill the Babysitter, and that has very much a creepy kid sort of thing. And all of her books are very fast-paced and twist endings. So that's kind of like along the same lines of like the plot pacing and stuff.
Cool. All sound like good recs. And I've heard other people talk about Stephanie Sparks, and every time I go, I'm going to buy their books and then instantly forget. So I'm going to write that one down too while Katrina's talking, if you don't mind, Katrina. So do you have any recs to add to our list? I'm wondering, based on the dolls behind you, if you have any doll recommendations or just general horror.
Yeah, so I don't have any like YA horror recs, but Somebody Come and Play by Claire McNally is a paperback from hell, like evil kid dolls, creepy doll imagery, like gothic horror, very dark. It was published in 1988. I think it is out of print right now, but I got it on eBay like pretty cheap, and I read it, and I wasn't expecting much because sometimes you're told if the cover's really good, it's not going to be good in paperbacks itself, but it was actually really good and really dark. And then another thing is a middle grade horror series, the Small Spaces Quartet series by Catherine Arden. I really liked that series. It was really scary, I feel like, for middle grade. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all. Maybe like some Mary Han Downing?
Mary Downing Hahn?
Mary Downing Hahn, yeah. She has a couple of creepy doll middle grade books. I'm mixing up all the authors' names. A.R. Alexander has, like, I think Took is, maybe I'm mixing them up too.
Took, I think, is Mary Downing Hahn, but A.R. Alexander has The Collector.
Yes.
I have both of them, actually, and I want to read them.
I want to read that too. It's really bad.
I feel like all of you are kind of more seasoned horror readers than me, and I'm just hearing all of this, and I'm like trying to soak it all in because, like, I know I have the Small Spaces one, and I've heard other recommendations before. Like, I'm just going to skip ahead. Somebody says that they are reading a book.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, that's my favorite book of all time.
So, and isn't that nice that I think that as a YouTuber, like, you can have a real impact, and I think that from like watching your videos, I feel like I've got a sense of all of you, like what you like and what you like as people, and obviously we've got a lot of things in common. So it's been very lovely chatting to you. I think that I've kind of got to the end of what I want to say. So the only thing I thought I'd ask you is what you think about for future YA book clubs. Do you have any genres you would like to read or particular books that you think would be great? Any of you got anything you'd like to add, or would you like to come back to horror, or would you be willing to try something different maybe? Kelsey, how about you?
I'm always willing to try something different, but of course I gravitate towards horror. So I'm like, I feel like you're more of the YA expert than me. So I'd love like you coming up with like a great horror pick to where I could be like, yes, I discovered a new gem. Like I feel like Frozen Charlotte was kind of like a gem for me. Like I said, it was a 5-star. And I will say, moving backwards for a second, there's a newer book, but it's a spoiler to say it features toys and dolls, but it does. I can't say what it is, but it is a better version. It's almost like a nod to Toy Cemetery by William W. Johnstone, but it's way better. If you go into Toy Cemetery, I know you're going to read it, Katrina, but if you go into Toy Cemetery thinking there's a ton of toys and dolls, you may be a little disappointed. It needs more toys and dolls, but there's a newer book that does it better. And I think it's a nod to it.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
I think I know you've read the book, Katrina. It's pretty new.
What you're talking about.
Yeah, I think I may know what you're talking about, but I might ask you afterwards.
Yeah, you can ask me after.
Okay. So how about you, Elizabeth or Katrina? Anything you would like to see covered in a future book club, or are you just happy for me to pick loads of creepy stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. And I know you guys are reading, I think it's called The Witchery this month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That one sounds really good. I like anything that like has to do with witches, or like stuff that's sort of a little bit of horror, but a little bit of fantasy, like, you know, mixing genres a little bit there too.
Yeah.
I always say every year, I'm like, oh, I'm going to read more outside of the horror category. And then I never do. So
maybe you can dip into some of these. I mean, I have got a really good YA horror that I was going to do in April, because some of them I'm going to pick and then some I'm going to let people pick. And I picked a really good one, contacted the author, and they've said that there's a really good giveaway, but I have to do it later in the year. So I've got a really good YA horror book coming up, but I have to leave it a bit later because all will be revealed in that regard. Yeah, so exciting things to come there. How about you, Katrina? Is there anything that you would particularly like to read or you'd like to see us cover?
I guess still like maybe horror leaning, but yeah, that's tough because I don't read a ton of YA.
Maybe that's enough. Maybe you can just join us for any of the YA where you think, maybe I can give that one a go.
Maybe
it might
sci-fi, like dystopian, because I feel like that can be horror as well. Like,
yeah, that's a good call.
Or something.
Yeah, again, sci-fi is one that I don't read loads, and yet there's authors like Naomi Gibson, right? What's that? Sorry.
Dread Nation by Justina Ireland.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna write that down.
That duet is really good. The first book is really good. It has like really great world building in it. It's like an alternate history, and it's zombies, and I really liked it.
Cool.
But like more zombie horror YA stuff, I would be into reading for sure.
Yeah, I feel like Christopher Pike would be a good. I mean, I know you're not going to always do vintage, but if you ever want to go vintage for a second, I mean, I know there's a Christopher Pike book club, but I mean, why not do it one time?
I feel, because I wouldn't do Point Horror because Shelley, I think who is in the chat, has got the Point Horror book club, and you should all join that because it's so much fun. But I might have to talk to you about the Christopher Pike, Kelsey, like what you feel is like the best representative. All of you are nodding, so I might have to just.
Well, I mean, Elizabeth loves Christopher Pike.
Witch.
I love Witch.
Okay.
I just read Witch.
Elizabeth.
Okay, I'm going to write down Witch on my Christopher Pike list. Is the one called Monster as well? I feel like one of you was talking about Monster.
I love
recently.
Monster. That's my favorite. I love Monster.
Did you read that recently, Katrina, as well?
Yes. Yes,
I thought you did.
So
I'm
like,
really bad at
Katrina and Elizabeth,
they
they liked Witch better than me, but I like Monster better than Katrina.
Okay.
So
I let people. We'll do a Christopher Pike month, and I will let people choose which one we read. because I haven't read loads of Pike. I don't know what happened, but Fear Street, Point Horror totally got me. I missed Christopher Pike in the 90s. Like, how this happened, I don't know. Because they weren't Point Horror or Fear Street. Like, weren't they his own thing generally?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't under another banner, was he?
He did write a Point Horror book. He wrote
I think there's
Slumber
only
Party.
one. Yeah.
Slumber Party. And it's not like, you could tell he was almost being like forced into their formula, but he wanted to have weirdness in there, but he didn't quite get there.
See,
The cool thing about Pike is that he brings a weirdness to his books to where
Yes.
it's almost not pure horror.
It's not horror like you would
Exactly.
think about horror. It's completely different. But like, I know myself and Edie Lewis read The Midnight Club, and we were talking about
yes.
how it's horror in a different way. And I mean, that book just totally destroyed me.
Emotionally, yes. I mean,
yeah, I watched the advert on Netflix and went, no, I can't cope. That's one of my like sick teenagers. I don't think I can cope.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as you say it's so sad.
They canceled it too. I was so bummed.
I can't believe it. I know.
But you know, Mike Flanagan didn't leave us hanging. He let us know what happened.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. Sorry, my comments are jumping all over the place. So Reka, yeah, I think that may be a good choice as well, but the kind of thing where loads of people have read it, so I might leave those. Like if the book club kind of continues, I might let books like that sit for a little while and then we can kind of come back to it. I think I've just about reached the end of the comments. That might be a good, oh gosh, it refreshes a load jump up. So I'm just seeing if there's anything that we need to say. I think that not having dolls in your bedroom is probably, I'm the same. Like, I don't think I'd be able to look at the little shadows of them and go to sleep. It's like, is that moving? Agreed. I think, Claire, that we could delve into a lot of horror in the book club, and hopefully people that don't like horror, like I know Reika was brave and like forced us all to read the creepy doll book. It can kind of, like the Christopher Pike can be, is it a bit gentler, the horror? Maybe,
it's just
or
weird.
It's
just
just
like a
different.
horror.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a different subject. I haven't read any Colleen Hoover. Any thoughts, the three of you? Is Colleen Hoover trying
I've
to
not read
convince-
anything by Colleen Hoover, but from what I know of her, then I would say yes. Maybe. From what I've heard.
I only thought of like one
I bought
thing.
one book.
I was like...
Yeah. Yeah, I bought one.
Incest. I was like, is there incest in Colleen
If there
Hoover?
is, then yes.
I don't know. I mean, I bought one Colleen Hoover book because I thought I'm going to try and to see what this hype is, but I haven't picked it up because I keep looking at me like, actually, do I want to? I don't know whether it's my thing or all.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way usually. It's not my
Oh
thing.
my
I kind of want to
gosh.
read Heights books. That sounds so cool.
I
I
wish.
think I need to go there.
Me too.
Yep, I agree with
Yes.
Sharon. Sharon is wise. Gosh, there's so many comments. I really appreciate. I'm just going to bring up the ones like
Yes.
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 And Kendara Blake is awesome. If you want to read Buffy-esque books that are genuinely like Buffy, I know Elizabeth's with me on this. She does a great job. I interviewed her on my channel and she's super lovely. She even blurbed my second book, which was like a kind of high point in my career. I think it's going to be pretty difficult to top that one. So yeah, hopefully I will get her on again at some point to chat more about her Buffy books now. A couple are out. Somebody has decided to follow Fictional Hangover, so making excellent choices. I appreciate so many people commenting. Oh, and I have commented, so let's see what I have to say. Okay, so Andreas, Claire, and Books on a Wire, congratulations, you all won a signed book plate. I think you all follow me on various things, so please contact me. And I will hook you up with a signed Alex Bell book plate. So well done. Yes, I am biased, but yes, please, to more horror. I'm interested in the idea of classics. I want to know like what classics are considered YA, and I might be able to. Like I know Catcher in the Rye is considered one of the early YAs, and I haven't read that for a long time. So maybe that's one that we could rip to shreds together.
I would 100% reread that because I know I read it in school, but ask me about it and I'm like, I have no idea. Why did I read it in school? What it's about? You know, I would totally reread it just to.
You read it in school?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy because it's like one of the banned books.
We read it in school. I'm telling you, I just don't remember anything about it.
I read it in school too, only because I saw it on the banned books list. And I was like, I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna
I
read
have
it
to
in
read
front
that.
of teachers, and they're gonna be like, "That's banned." Except nobody was. Except one teacher was like, "Oh, that's a banned book." Ha ha ha.
I wonder how I was able to read it then. That's weird.
I feel like Yeah,
curse
sorry.
word in it over and over again.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah.
it.
I think banning books just makes teenagers want to read them. So I really think
Yep.
you might as well just let people choose for themselves. Because if I
Yeah.
was told banned when I was a teenager, I'd be like, challenge accepted. I'm going to find this book and read it. Dystopians, a good call. I read a good dystopian recently called My Love Life in the Apocalypse that comes out in April. If anybody's looking for a rec about I want to say cyborg, but I'm not very good with my tech terms. Somebody who has some like AI parts to them. And a girl go on a road trip together, and it's dystopian and the world is terrible, but they're having this cute relationship at the same time. So I really liked that. And let me see. Yes, I think we may have a vampire month at some point where I'm going to give a load of vampire choice. I'm just looking up at I've got a vampire shelf. I'm looking up at my vampire books and thinking we could just let people. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I need to put romance in there because I want to try it because I don't read that much. But yes, somebody's recommending Beth Revis for sci-fi. Yes, to people agreeing with us on Christopher Pike. Dawn Kurtagich does give mental health representation. Absolutely fine. It is honestly like I welcome honesty. I would much rather if you'd gone,
Yeah.
well, I loved it and you didn't love it. Like I kind of want to have an open conversation about it. And it feels weird, doesn't it? Sometimes you're the only person in the room who's like, I didn't vibe with this book for whatever reason. And that's fine. I'm sure that like it's going to happen where I'm going to not like a book, then I'm kind of going to have to come on and be like,
I
this
didn't even
wasn't
think
for
that
me.
was negative when you said Lizzie.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was
Lizzie's lovely.
It was just an analysis, which I love hearing people's thoughts, and as long as you're respectful, I mean, it's no big deal to each other. I mean, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't have an issue with
when
it.
I don't like things.
Yeah, again, Katrina, I'm sure you are still really smiley and positive, even when I think critiquing any book is fine. I don't like being tagged in reviews that are negative, but I don't mind that people review my book negatively, if that makes any sense. So it's fine for people to not like stuff, but I think as long as you don't tag the author in it, it's fine.
Yeah, I would never, ever do that. I'd be so scared.
It's only happened to me occasionally, luckily. And like sometimes I think they've tagged you because they think it's positive, and then they tell you all the reasons they didn't like it too. But it's, you know, and I that's what I like about reviewing books. I think that it isn't a real review channel if you're not giving a properly balanced point on a book. Like recently I had a little run. I'd read for ages just books that I liked, and then there were two last month. A Junji Ito, which I did not enjoy, sadly. I love his books normally. No Longer Human was based on like a loose autobiography of somebody else's, and because it wasn't his, it didn't quite work for me.
Oh, that
and then
book
another
is so
one,
sad, and
it's
and
not
fun. Yeah,
no, and I quite liked parts of it, but there wasn't enough in it to kind of redeem it for me. And then another book the same month, I was a bit like a bit disappointed. So I just kind of think we've got to be honest about books. So yeah, don't. And you were very nice and positive anyway, Lizzie. So don't worry. And I think there's one more comment. Yes, read The Dead House. That's very good. Really sorry in advance if it messes with you. Makes you question everything, because it did me. That book, it's really good. Mixed media, very mind melting and psychological, but really well done. I think we're at the end of the comments. It might be a nice time to stop. Thank you so much for giving me so much of a time, the three of you. I know that it's the middle of the day for you, is it? I'm really confused what time it is, but yeah, it's during the day. So you're giving it your days for me, and this is my evening, so I'm like already on wind down mode. So I really appreciate it doing the first one with me as well, and thank you for everybody who's joined me for this. I've learned a lot about this book club, and it's made me think about things like content warnings. It's made me think about kind of giving a balance. I think people seem to like me choosing some and being able to choose others. So it's been great. Thank you for bearing with me on anything I've been trying to figure out, because I found juggling across the social media tricky. I'm still working out Goodreads. I don't fully understand it, but bear with me. I will get that going. My husband's very good on it's not the most user-friendly. Like, I love the fact that on other social media, I can interact really easily with people. So if they're chatting to me on Instagram and Twitter, I feel like I can have a proper conversation. But replying on Goodreads doesn't seem as easy. So I'm sorry if you've said something to me and I've not replied to it. It's because I don't understand it. So I'd say if you want to have a proper conversation with me about books, try on there. But if I don't seem to respond, then try Instagram and Twitter. So just to summarize, you can find the channels of the three lovely people who joined me tonight in the title and description. I thought you were so great, the three of you, to talk to. Thank you so much. I knew we'd enjoy talking to each other. I'm glad we also all enjoyed the book, because it did make it a kind of nice, all on the same page discussion, but it'll also be interesting future ones if there's kind of disagreement, I think, and to have a real, like, kind of both sides of the argument thing. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for joining me with my first book club. I'm so pleased with how it's going. I think we'll sign off now, but as we mentioned, we're reading The Witchery by S. Isabel, which is a book about a cursed town and a school for witches that are trying to do something about the curse. It has been so fun to read so far. Just a few people saying thank you to us, so I will pop those up. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, so many nice people. I'm just going to try and click through as many. Thank you for joining us. It has been great. And thank you, Ashlyn. Also, another great YA author. If you're wanting some vampires and werewolves in your life, Ashlyn wrote Big Bad Meat, which is a very cool book. Thank you, Amy, for joining us. Hopefully, Amy, you might want to come on with me at some point and we'll read something spooky maybe together. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Lizzie. And yes, thank you again for the recommendations, everyone. Sorry to my bank account, but thank you. So we will leave it there. Good night or good day, whatever time zone you are in. We will hopefully catch you at the next book club. Please come find us all on social media if you want to chat about books. So good night and good day. Good day. I sound very English, don't I? Good day. Hello. So hopefully see you all in the future on the next book chat. Bye.
Bye.